Let me hit this. All right, so let me come back over to this. And I just want to welcome everybody to our Enjazel Professional Development. We are really excited to have Sheila Caldwell with us tonight. She's going to be sharing lots of great info. We've been hearing so many great things and we cannot wait. Just a reminder to everybody that if you are looking for a professional development certificate after the event, you'll get an email with a link to a post-event quiz. You fill out the quiz and you'll end up with a, not in addition to the slide deck, sorry, just the quiz. And once the form is completed, you'll receive the Enjazel certificate for 1 hour PD. And don't forget, you can always keep an eye on what's coming up. We've got lots of plans in the works. We're going to be putting lots of stuff on our calendar, so you can see that at enjazel.org/librarianpd. And don't forget to follow us on social media. We're pretty much on most of them. You can find us at Enjazel on quite a few. So I think that's our preamble done. So I am going to stop this and I'm going to turn everything over to our wonderful guest, Sheila. Sheila, thank you for being here with us. Can't wait to hear what you've got to share.
Gotta find my unmute. Thank you for inviting me this evening. I was really quite honored to have gotten the invitation to come and speak about grants and grant writing. This is going to be a whirlwind of information that I am trying to give to you within this next hour. Um, when I initially did this presentation that Ms. Chapman was aware about, it was a 4.5 hour, um, a course of a session over like a day and a half, just to give people breaks in between at a conference. Um, but anyway, I'm a school nurse actually in Monmouth County and have written a few grants, not an outrageous amount, but enough to be able to give you some insight into what grant writing is about. And now, please tell me if this is a screen change. Yeah.
Yep, we're good.
Okay. Just to be sure. Okay. Because I sometimes when I put it in the presenter mode, it doesn't seem to change. So I'm going to leave it like this. So anyway, basically, we're going to quickly go over the importance of grant writing. Look at the 5 R's. That's going to be the main framework that we're looking at. Identify a few funding resources. Um, look at some partners. Um, talk about a little bit about peer review and revisions, understanding a submission, and then I'm going to share with you some grant opportunities from NEA, NJEA, and even some others. And basically, that's where we're going with this. Okay. So really, when we think about the importance of grants, they are like a mainstay in our society at this point in time, and they are available in a number of areas. So we know when you think about like medical research or something like that, there are grants that are important to that area in supporting nonprofits, these programs that address maybe some social and environmental or community concerns. Um, promoting education, obviously, that's about us at improving educational outcomes, um, advancing arts and culture, addressing social issues overall, stimulating our economic development. And this kind of looks at, fostering like job creation and innovation and things like that, like grants that promote like some mentoring programs, maybe scholarships, et cetera, stuff like that. And just generally about fostering collaborations, because many grants, you're not doing them alone. And truly, this is like a very basic kind of quick, as I say, whirlwind of information. So we just know they're vital to our society and all that we need to have done. So here are the 5 R's. As you can see here: readiness, research, writing, obviously W silent, review, and revision. So when we think about writing a grant, it's all about these 5 R's. And if you follow these steps of the model, you're on target. So readiness is really looking at how you prepare for a grant. So although you're going to possibly find a number of grants that you would find out there available to you, you really should look for something that makes sense to you and your community. Um, whatever that community is, whether it's something to do with you as a librarian, whether something to do with the school system, or something that's possibly you're thinking of in your faith-based organization or otherwise. So that readiness is so very important. And when you're preparing, the most important aspect of this is really doing a needs assessment to see, what it is that is important enough for this grant to be granted to you, based on a need that's of whatever that community is that you so chose to consider it being a part of. So um, it's looking at this point, assessing requirements and resources. So there are many tips and a requirement to access. Um, why do you want this money? What do you think the funding should be used for? Um, there's ways to navigate a number of the grant writing resources to filter down to see if it narrows down to something that makes more sense for you to do. There are some of the websites that you can sign up for alerts for specific type grants, and taking a look at what their guidelines are. Because if you're not following their criteria and really looking closely at what the ask is, you may have yourself thrown out from possibly getting that grant just by not following those guidelines thoroughly and looking at what their expectations are for you to do in terms of writing this grant. Did it switch? Okay. Here's some additional information that I kind of mentioned, looking at the websites. Um, know some key acronyms that they use. You may see RFP written, request for proposal. You may see no go, and you may see NOFO. Depends on the organization that's offering them or the agency, whether it's like a state agency or a federal agency. You're going to see this offer written in different ways. So I'm going to attempt to quickly show you on grant.gov. So I'm going to click this, and I probably might have to stop sharing just to kind of show you quickly. I don't know. Are you able to see this on
It hasn't
grants.gov?
opened for us.
Okay, so a quick stop share, reshare, because it should have. You would think that this stuff really all works the way you want it to work.
You'd think after us all doing this for how many years of Zoom and we
Yeah,
still, I always click the wrong button.
yeah. So just to kind of show you quickly, grants.gov is like one of the major ones from a federal level that offers grants. And you let me know if what you see in me typing in here. So I'm going to typing library. And as you can see, there are many, 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 many grants in the search concerning libraries. Um, who knows how many pages it goes up to 6, but it doesn't even tell us exactly. It's only showing 45 on a page. But there are many grants available that you can look at. And as I say, you can, when you go on the website, you can filter them down for more specific information. But grants.gov is going to be a major one to look at. These are, though, mostly, as I say, that from the federal perspective. So it's not like you're going to find grants that are potentially that a newbie would want to be looking at, that are uh, only like a $500 grant or whatever. So I'm going to stop sharing that quick. And I think that was my, I don't know if that was my computer making the noise? But I'm going to get rid of a page. So if you could hear that, hopefully you won't hear it again. But if you have any questions as I'm kind of talking, just throw it in the chat, and I should hopefully see it here as words again. Okay. All right, move the page up. So as you think through your initial work with grants, you really have to be clear in looking at what you're determining as your mission and vision, based on whatever the grant is. So you want to really have an idea of all this stuff ahead of time, and then maybe go out seeking some grants, unless something just happens to come up that you really find that's of interest to you. What is your capacity? You know, do you have the time? Do you have the resources? Do you have the ability to really dive deep into getting all this information and completing your needs assessment to get this grant rolling? Um, Here it has your organization's financial stability. So this kind of looks at if you were doing this under, let's say, a 501c3 or something of that type of an organization. But realize there are even grants for individuals, and we'll definitely be talking about some of those a little later. Is there support? Now, in our case, because we work in school settings, there may be a grant that you find that you might say, will I get support from my school district? Um, will they buy into it? Will they be a partner with me? So there's always that type of opportunity for this to happen. Am I going to be able to collect the data appropriately and find evidence of the real need of what I'm going to be asking for in this grant? Um, you know, you have to really be thinking about those kind of things and weigh out the potential risks, because there could be risks. Let's say you started a grant writing with a district, and then unbeknownst to you, they switch you from one building to another, and now you might have had a project all set up that's rolling in one building, and potentially that is an uncertainty and as a risk could be um, a factor. So the next are research. Um, Systematic investigation study, okay, undertaking this. And as I mentioned before, there's different types of grants. Um, and biomedical, obviously, are those ones that we hear about all the time that relate to health. When we think about the social science research, that's a lot of surveys and experimentation around human behavior and things like that. Environmental, we know that this happens a lot, whether it's related to climate or doing studies of soil and all that type thing. And money's needed to do all these things. And what better way when you don't have the direct resources yourself, other than to write a grant for it, to attempt to be able to do this work. And technological and arts and humanities. So research, very important for you. And we're still talking about research here. So you're going to identify some of the funding opportunities. I showed you one. I showed you one of the major ones through our government, which is grants.gov. So although that is a main big website, and that's mainly a lot of the governmental agencies, there are a number of ones that maybe are at the state level. Foundations, we do know many foundations offer grants. We know corporations. We know there are even some at nonprofits or international, and the other listings there, academic institutions. And when we think more to that thought of academic institutions and even to the crossover into governmental, the Pell grants. the ones for get helping you to get back to school if you so qualify. And we are now seeing a lot more in that crowd funding space where things like with Kickstarter or GoFundMe, that enables like individuals and businesses and organizations to raise funds for some creative projects. Um, you may even have one that is very basic, although it's not exactly a grant, but you do have to get like permission and all to use it, is that donor choose. I know a lot of educators find out from their district if they can use donor choose. So that is definitely one of the platforms too that is like a crowd funding kind of a donation-y thing that um, can get you some money to do some type of project. So um, in looking at this and thinking about it, it's going back to a lot of the information I kind of said before, but we have to dig a little deeper into when we're thinking about these opportunities of, what is going to be your mission and vision? What will be your funding opportunities? Um, have you really looked through those guidelines really close? And a key thing is looking at when the deadlines are due, because some grants have periodic deadlines. You might have to do a short entry of information and send it in, where they then look at it and determine, hey, this looks pretty good. They might reach back out to you and ask you that. Many grants actually have um, programs that are considered technical assistance. And what they do is they'll have a webinar type thing situation where they review all the requirements of the grant, give people that are potentially interested the opportunity to ask some questions and things like that. So um, as you're looking at grants, be sure you are looking at how and what opportunities the actual funders are offering. You know, as I say, building partnerships, collaborations, that is very important if it's, bigger grants, obviously not at an individual level. Excuse me. And one of the key things is a lot of grant funders look for is that your project is going to be sustained beyond their time. Um, they get that, let's say a 2-year grant is, yes, that money's for you for 2 years. Possibly, if you read all of their information, there may be the opportunity at like a year and a half level that you can then reapply for additional funds, or possibly another partner that you can find in your community or through another grant opportunity to extend it. Sustainability is really a key factor that grant funders really take into consideration, and engaging with various stakeholders. So it depends on what it is and what's going on. So one thing I'll just mention to you, I had written a grant in my community that was related to health and well-being. And what I did was I couldn't be the person who handled the money. I wasn't that point of contact. I partnered with my district, partnered with the mayor. I'm in a dual district town, the two mayors, and partnered with Montclair University's mental health Center for Autism area of mental health. And what I had created was basically a grant that, now think about this. This is before the pandemic. My whole project was on going to where people are to give them opportunity of having mental health work that they can have, parents and children. So it was a $10,000 grant. My premise was having availability of mental health workshops and things at the school. In addition to, we recorded them so that people could access them by their phones or whatever device they have. Um, in addition, it was a hybrid situation too, where they could actually log in from home um, if they could. So they had full opportunity to have access to these workshops. And another thing I did with this was at the local libraries. I had purchased in the grant earbuds because the libraries have computers, setups. And so I dropped off like, I don't know, 400 earbuds at the library. So they also knew if they did not have a device, they could go there. In addition to any of the parents that, how like parents hang around at the school before kids get let out. And so what I did was we had a room that was set up with Chromebooks, so those parents could log in too. So maybe they missed the live, but they could go back and watch these sessions and still participate in a forum that allowed this. So, be thinking about your stakeholders. So my point was in this grant that I wrote, it was about the stakeholders that I was making a point to you about. But it was really innovative kind of thing, and this was pre-pandemic. And had it really gone like really majorly full blown, I would have been very sustainable, and we would have really had a number of resources throughout the pandemic. But it just didn't work out that way. So back to this needs assessment. Key point. You know, um, going and looking at what it is you want to influence or get going on, and why are you doing this, and getting input. I didn't mention in the grant that I wrote is I initially went out to parents and had surveys um, at different places with parents to ask them, what did you think, what topics would you want to hear about concerning mental health, and they gave me different topics, and that's the way we geared our sessions by. So when you're doing this needs assessment, be sure you're identifying the population, get data from them, whatever that data may be, whether it's something you're gearing a grant toward kids, potentially adults, potentially, whatever that community group is you are hoping to influence and make change for. Look at what's going on. Try to see if you can figure out any of the root causes, and then communicating with various stakeholders, because there are actually many people who are actually have grants in place that may be very similar to what you want to do, and it's good to partner with them just because they already have a vested interest in this, and possibly you're helping their project as well as getting your own going. you know um, when you conduct a needs assessment, here are some steps. As you see, define your scope and your objectives. um, Back to this, identifying your stakeholders, collecting your data, developing your data tools, whatever you're going to use, whether it's surveys, whether it's other methods, analyzing it, and then coming down with finalizing what you really want to do once you document the findings from your data. So it's just, all important. This whole area of what is the R of research is really vital to do. Let me see, I think there's another slide on this. Okay, the partnerships. So I talked somewhat about the partnerships. Okay, so you, you have to seek out what makes the most sense of who are partners, community partners, or um, local governmental partners, or that type thing, or agencies, or similar to like I did, because mine was definitely to an area related to mental health. I looked for programs that had mental health um, capacity of information. And obviously, they were built into my grant almost like as a, what would you call it? Um, Subcontractor, if you will. That's how they were written into my grant, basically. So we obviously had to pay them for the use of the materials and all that they had developed and all that for them to present these sessions for me at, well, for the school district. Okay. But it's important having all these partnerships and relationships. Um, it increases the credibility. You see, access diverse networks. Um, it, the capacity ends up being increased. You share a little bit more of the risk and the accountability. So even if I hadn't been potentially able to, let's say, be physically at a location, the folks from Montclair University would have picked up the slack because it was also online and they were really engaged in it. And as I say, it was going to where the people were. So it was something really unique for the time when I did this in 2017 ish, thereabouts. Collaborations, important. Same thing, same thought. So, writing. So, now here's where you have to really be thinking about how your writing abilities really come into play because you have to make a really compelling grant. And obviously, what you're basing it on is looking at that NOFO or RFP that they have and going then, let's say, to the website of that organization that's offering the grant or agency and looking at what is their mission and vision? What kind of language do they use? You want to really tailor what you put into a grant to very similar of what the organization or the agency has that is offering the grant in the first place, these funders, um, aligning it with their priorities, because that then is key to them. They're like, oh wow, yeah, hey, they got to know us. They paid attention. They've been paying attention and they're watching what's going on. So you want to be able to, maximize your impact by doing things like that. So that kind of goes back to the research, but also in the writing, once you really start writing your proposals. Um, these are back to the needs assessment, but this is in the context of what the writing should potentially include. Um, being succinct, don't use jargon, don't use acronyms. Uh, as I say, dive into their work to see their what they really are focused on so that you can tailor your documentation to make sense. Um, that be objective and be balanced. Important, important. You really don't want to show any real bias when you are writing your grant. Now, if your focus is on, let's say, male uh, Black boys or, women above the age of 65, that's your focus. It's really not looking at it from a perspective of being biased. It's looking at this is my target group that I'm writing this grant for. So, just make sure you know the distinction of that. So it's definitely a different thing depending on what your other wording is in your needs statement that you craft. Use your objectives. I think we are all familiar with SMART goals. And so, excuse me, um, specific, measurable, the whole thing there. Consider some milestones. So, like an example, as you see, I have there is, like let's say we're going to increase the number of individuals receiving preventative health screenings by 20% within the first year of implementation. So, you know, think whether you're objectives need to focus on being more quantitative, with the numbers, or qualitative, based on what's going on, and your needs assessment data. Okay. Uh, have goals. In reality, some of your goals, you might want to have it in a little bit of a broader sense. Um, but that's all going to depend on when you read that grant proposal document excuse me, the grant proposal information, the NOFO or the RFP. It's going to depend on what their ask is. So be sure you're really focusing in on that, as I have said before.
Sheila, I
So
don't
if
mean to interrupt, but I've got a quick question for you if you don't
mm,
mind.
mm,
So in your example, in the previous slide, you had an example of, yeah, increase the number of individuals receiving preventative health screenings by 20% within the first year. Do you have any sense or any suggestions as to when we're setting those types of goals, would we be better off setting a number that we are positive we can hit, or is it more, do you think it's more beneficial to maybe look for a sort of a stretch goal, or just,
well,
I'm curious what your thoughts are.
yeah. Well, here's the thing. Thank you for the question. Um, Many times you may not get to this. Now, funders, depending, are going to say, okay, if we start them off with, let's say, $10,000 for a 3-year grant, that's a long time for a 3-year grant. But anyway, not as much money. But the deal is, they'll say, you know what? We're hoping that based on these goals and objectives they put in there, they're thinking a little more long term of potentially partnering with someone else, or they've seen in our documentation that there's that possibility of extending their grant, like a reapply for additional funds. It's really going to be a little hard to truly say, because it's going to be funder kind of dependent and who they got reading those proposals when they come in. But some know that you may not attain that number if you're using, the quantitative within, let's say, 1 year. This may never happen. They may say, "Oh yeah, they're really put their hopes up really high." So it's kind of a hard thing to tell, but if you look at their websites, whoever it is, as I say, agencies or organization, what happens is a lot of them, and I was going to talk about this later, but I'll mention it now because time really is flying, is that a lot of them have grants that have been awarded in the past. So you can go back on their website and look at past grants and see who wrote it. Sometimes there even is a contact link, um, what they, what their grant proposal was, if it's still ongoing. But they post a lot of, they're proud of their grant writing, and a lot of it is, whatever. I guess there's probably some um, offset of, let's say, community dollars and all those things that, hey, listen, this looks good for us as a PR thing, that we're showing that we are giving funds to, X school or this girl's organization or whoever. So um, as I say, perusing their website, a key factor to just kind of see what's going on. And this was just looking at an example from a qualitative, so we're not looking at directly a number. So this one, when you think from this perspective, um, it's going to be your dynamics of your goal and everything are going to be focused a little differently, because you're going to look at, from your needs assessment, hey, we had um, people in that were concerned, but we just want to improve it, prove it. We just want to improve it. We just want to make it better. So we're going to put in XYZ um, of resources and services within a location to improve um, the healthcare services. So I'm going to be really zooming. So budget, we know important when you are writing your proposal. You have to be very clear of the line items of where money is going. Now, some may or may not allow for personal costs like salaries and things, and some will. All in their documentation when you read that RFP, NOFO type thing. Okay. But generally, there are these kind of costs. So, like, even in the grant I did, there was even for when we had a couple of the people that came, because I gave you just the basic, because we had food and different things at these at the in-person sessions and all that type thing. So, and potentially an additional speaker. So, we might have given an honorarium or whatever the case may be, but just know that the budget will be a key thing that you definitely have to have clear, but it's not exact. You're giving it in an estimate. So you always want to overestimate by, so I can't say an exact percentage, but you always want to overestimate because you don't want to fall short if, let's say, you put in for a contractor, a subcontractor or a contractor, that you're going to give them $500 in my case, like per session, and it ends up being that built into their um, actual contract with you, it's not it's 525. I'm just saying, so you want to be do it a little bit over as you're looking for things. Okay. And definitely critical and important to be able to justify the budget items, so all of these things that you're doing when you submit your proposal, you have to keep in your mind that there may be periods of time throughout the grant process that, let's say, they're going to do a check-in and an update. And you may even have an opportunity to make some adjustments to your grant, similar like how we've been able to do in the school setting for like those SGOs, where you have a time where you can say, hey, you know what, this isn't kind of working, let's switch up. And actually, in my grant, I had switched up a little bit in it, and they accepted it, and then we moved on. Okay. Um, Communication, as far as writing the narrative, be clear, be clear. The story, tell the story. And I have a story I'm going to share with you. The stories are sometimes very compelling, and a lot of them seem to like that. So here's a quick example of, just say, the intro piece. So it's this is related to getting swimming lessons in an area of a town that does not have the opportunity for kids to have swimming. So this is just an intro um, of telling the story of why you want to apply for and hopefully be awarded the grant. Now, I know you don't have a lot of time to read this at the moment, but just showing this to you quickly that you can see there are a lot of key things in here to prevent drowning, to build confidence of the kids, keep them physically active. They don't have the opportunity, so we want to give them this opportunity. Okay. Um, let's hear some more of the backstory to the story. So now we give some more of a statistical piece, but in just language form of drowning. You see, leading cause of death, uh, and this in the minority population and in low income communities, historically marginalized. Okay. And then, when we're looking at those goals and objectives, here's what the things that we're trying to really look at and hope to change, you know. So some of them all relate back to that story, but we're adding in a little bit more. So it's just important to know that you're really in many times telling this whole story, and then how is it going to be done? We have to have, what is it actually going to be done? How many weeks? You see, we put the weeks, like what's the time frame, and who is it to serve? So it was specific. We, in this example, it's really specific. And, you know, this is important to do, and what your intended impact and outcomes are going to be. So, um, time is moving. So, I'm just, you can look at this in your in the recording, but just to really kind of give you this as an idea, and of that whole backstory and information that you're going to put in many grants, and you know, you would give a conclusion as well. Just really tying everything together in a wrap up of you know, telling that story and really giving it that extra boost for hopefully the grant funders to say, hey, you know what? This looks like a really good project that I'd be interested in supporting. And along with this would then be obviously the budget lined items. Um, and then you figuring out all the partners and whoever else, maybe teaming with the Y MCA or something like that to get this done. How you might have transportation might need to be built in for the children to get there. The whole thing. You really got to think about this, that whole broad sense, and really brainstorm everything you think you might need so that you look at it, determine if this makes sense. Obviously you may have to scale it down and or make a change to it depending on um, the look of it, but initially you're brainstorming, putting everything down that you think you potentially need, that the whole, all of it, and then making some adjustments before you actually really write that initial grant proposal. um, one thing that you really need to have is looking at things, and possibly it may need those revisions, as I'm just saying, based on what's going on. um, it may need to focus in a different direction, just because um, it might not really work based on what you were thinking. So get feedback, have other folks look at it, have other folks, excuse me, read the NOFO, the RFP, then ask them to read your proposal. You want to see if somebody who really has no knowledge of what you initially were trying to do, um, it can grasp it all, and feel, and you feel confident that what you are going to be submitting is like a hit, a grant that's going to get you the money. But obviously, it's ultimately your choice what you put in it. But getting the feedback and taking in suggestions is really important. And then, you can have somebody else go back through proofreading. We're looking at the grammar, we're looking at the words, we're looking at that whole wordsmithing process to be sure that it's um, in line, in order, and that the formatting, if they tell you they want it in Times Roman 12, etc., double space, similar to what we did when we like wrote papers for college, do that. Make sure you are really paying attention to that NOFO and that RFP to see what the ask is, and if they have like things like that are restrictions, only use certain fonts, types, etc. You want to be able to do that. So here, um, then it would be submission time. You know, have that one last look through again, and even that they may tell you only certain formats. Do what they're telling you. Don't deviate from what the ask is in that RFP or NOFO. Okay. So I'm going to quickly have you look through a few of these, and then I'm going to go to maybe one website. So we're thinking about some grants as we're looking at them. Here are just some opportunities. And being you all are educators, and I don't know necessarily how many of you potentially might be in NJEA versus AFT or another union, but because when I initially did this presentation, it was in an NJEA space, I talked about some of these grants. Now, you may or may not know that what used to be the Pride uh, grants are now PEP grants, and I have a slide about that, so you'll see what that's about. Okay, so it changed the name to Public Education Partnerships, and then FAST is still the same, where it's families and schools together. So they have these grant opportunities, and if you are in a school setting that is of this particular union, talk, find out who is in charge of these two grants in your local. They will have all the ins and outs and the information about them and know when the deadlines are and all that. And I know it's fast approaching. I can't tell you exactly, but I know it's fast approaching for these two type grants. I've seen some amazing grants done with some of these, and I do have a couple of examples. The retired folks, this is a Monmouth County one that had been offered. Um, Check with your retired folks. I've seen a couple other grants. This one's already passed, but I've seen some from some of the counties. So think about the counties. No different than local organizations is that. At the NEA level, oh my gosh, this is where you have an opportunity. Let's say you see that learning and leadership grant. Um, the QR isn't the greatest to scan, but you can Google um, NEA foundations and look at all their, these are all their grant general opportunities. And you can get a grant to potentially go to a conference. I know nurses that have gone to conferences. I know people that have gone out of the country even for projects that they have put in for. Okay. Um, and then there's ones you can do for like student success that would be in your classroom and all that. And you see there, these grants are up to $5,000 approximately. And there's others that they have available. This, I just had this in there because this was also if you became an officer um, in your local, there's a release time grant. You never, might not have ever known that. Now, Sustainable NJ, Sustainable New Jersey has a number of grants opportunities available. Many of them have to do with, let's say, environment, energy, infrastructure, things like that. But no, as you see there, they have technical assistance programs. So you could go on their website. They have tons of opportunities. And I know that my next, oh, I flipped the slides. Let me go to this one. This one is if you are in NJEA, they have, this one's open. This one's open till October for some sustainable programs. You would have to go on the website to get a clearer picture of what the RFP is to understand what's available. But on the Sustainable Jersey website, they do have past recipients listed for all kinds of stuff. So down, just to go back to this one. This is one I just saw yesterday. Now, and then I called them and contacted them, and they gave me the information. You might be interested in getting one of those water filling stations in your school. You see, it closes on September 27th. And they told me, what's in italics is what I added that they told me verbally that schools are welcome to partner with a qualifying organization. It has to be a 501c3. So some public charity, and if you're in the area where this New Jersey American Water is, you could apply with them. And, um, you know, obviously the school would have to be part of the conversation to put one in. But just so you're aware, this is available. I haven't looked at the chat. I see there's 7 things in there, but I haven't looked to see. It might be questions. I'm not sure. There is uh, this Vision Loves Educators classroom projects. So you can look at that. New Jersey, well, this is Grant Watch New Jersey. Well, New Jersey Grant Watch. There's the national one that's just Grant Watch, and then there's New Jersey Grant Watch. They have tons of grants available. Um, when I did a previous session, someone had asked me about grants to do with women, and you see there were 89 available when I did another presentation. This I'm going to share with you because if you can see this, I don't know how well you can. But I figured you guys are librarians and you might appreciate this. I was on a special advisory board for the National Network of Libraries of Medicine, the Middle Atlantic states. And I was on a special advisory board for a couple years in 2017, 16 through 18. And they have grant opportunities. You would be surprised how many grant opportunities are through the National Library of Medicine, in addition to resources, webinars, etc., all around writing grants and all that. So I'm giving you that as another thought of a resource to go to and be able to look at what they have available there related to grants and even education around grants. New Jersey Library, State Library, you see that I have that. They have a grant page where you can learn about proposal writing, etc. And then they show you some grants there too, and even private grants. So these opportunities, there's tons of opportunities to learn how to write grants within your organization. If you ask around, you may have members that have written grants that might be very willing to look at things for you and review them with you. In your school districts, um, you just never know. So it's not. I mean, I'm making it sound like it's kind of an easy thing. It's a lot of work. It's it's not like it's uh you're going to do this in a day. It's a lot of the research and all of that work, pre-work before you actually write the proposal is, you know, is quite a bit. And then really trying to figure out your budget. That really is an area that you have to look at, and hopefully whoever you're hoping to have as, let's say, partners and all, are giving you a good estimate of what their cost would be so you can build it all in. And as you build in, you know um, supplies you need, etc., you really have to take a look at that. But know these resources are all out there. There's grants for field trips that we have here in New Jersey. There's grants out of this community foundation. Um, there's grants. Well, someone had asked me in one of the sessions about um, businesses, so I had just threw this in because there were a number of grants, especially for people of minority and veterans and women during the pandemic. There were a number of them for opening a small business. At this point, it's kind of tapered off a bit, but there are still some opportunities. Um, Faith-based. New Jersey has this faith-based initiative, and a lot of money was given to help with infrastructure in a lot of faith-based buildings, like fixing their whole HVAC system, in addition to doing these things like you can see on here, where it involved like food security and assisting seniors and all. But there really is a lot of things going on. I just put a whole nother list of some other places and things that are there. And I'm not going to go through that. That was the pride hip, hip. This is actually a picture of one where this educator got a HIP grant. Here's just another one that was around creating a podcast site that somebody got. Um, you know, this was oh, someone had asked me about bus tours, and yes, when I contacted HIP, they said it could be built in to have a grant to take kids on like excursions to visit a college campus. I mean, you'd be surprised. Sometimes one of the things that I will say is some of them really like a lot of innovative thoughts of doing things. Here's one. This is now an NEA one. She was funded to have a book vending machine for her school, and that's in Franklin. Here's another one that was near New Jersey. She did something around STEM. But there's so many, so many. It's just a matter of knowing and getting out there and, get out of your comfort zone and just attempt to write one. So I'm going to end that here and stop sharing and quickly see what's in this chat because I haven't been able to see it officially. It's hard when you're presenting to really look at it.
Yeah, the
Um,
screen ends up kind of pushing off the side a lot of times,
yes,
unfortunately.
yes. So, yeah, someone wrote that they lost a grant this summer. They didn't have clear data collection goals. Yes,
Yeah.
makes so much sense. They want to know that you have your information down. Um, what else is here?
I was also thinking as you were going along, and especially when you're talking about research opportunities, like I know that there's a lot of people in the school library profession that are starting to look at their doctoral degrees, and it seems like that might be a great pairing to be able to say,
Absolutely.
I'm going to do my doctoral degree and I'm going to get some money to help me do what I want to do. So
That's a
that
good
definitely
idea.
could be something for people to think about.
Yes, yes, yes. They just have to really look around to see if there are some that could be offered. You never know.
Yeah.
But there are tons of grant opportunities out there. Um, Learning how to do them and just like I say, jumping out of your comfort zone. I initially started with writing just a $500 grant for a garden at the school, and I it was really just getting it gave me the materials, it gave me some of the seeds, it gave me really some basics and things for the students to use while they were out there. But I got it. So I was like, let's try some others as time goes on. I mean, the 10,000 was the highest one I got, but I have worked with other folks and they've just kind of asked me to kind of go in with them on some tips and tricks around it. I'm not an expert. By no means am I an expert, but I do like to sometimes jump into things just to see, especially like this, what's out there, although I'm not in New Jersey. Yes, yes, these opportunities are out there. They're out there. Um,
I was
Even in
surprised to
whatever
learn
state
that
it's in.
our county education association, the retirees have their own grant program set up. And we were told at a meeting, like, we don't get a whole lot of applications. So if you put in an application, very high probability that you might get it. So
That is so, so true. The
yeah,
retirees have these opportunities out there, and people, I don't, I don't know. I guess it's how they market it. I'm not sure. Because that's really what everything is about is awareness and marketing. When you really think about um, looking at grants or looking at any information that is potentially available to you and really researching things. So I hope
Sheila,
this was
thank
very
you
helpful.
so much. I mean, this has been such a wealth of information, and I know I'm going to be picking through this for a while, trying to just get it all organized, but this is so great. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, you are so very welcome. And I hope like I said, I had to crunch that 4.5 because we would have been doing some work sessions and that kind of thing, writing the different pieces of those R's in the framework and all that, had we been, let's say, in person and really had a length of time. But an hour is fine just to give, because it really was about the snapshot, right? Giving the overview. So just giving you that as the tidbit.
Outstanding. Thank you so much. And thank you
Surely.
everybody who was here. And thank you to all our viewers who I'm sure are going to be checking this out because who does not need more free money? So
Yeah. Yeah.
we are greatly appreciative. And we hope to see all of you and everybody who tunes in for our next PD event. Make sure you're checking out the NJSL website for what's going to be coming along. And I think that's it for this evening. So thank you so much. Have a good one, everybody. Hope everybody's school year is off to a good start, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Okay. Good night.